radio for the masses. Yeah, man. Today's Monday, November 21st. 326 days into the new year, just 40 days left. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's Thanksgiving week. Oh, man. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you getting ready? Love Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's the food. But more than that, it's sitting at a table, looking around at your family, some friends, and just being thankful for everything that we have. That's what's most important. So, with that, tonight, very special guest back with us, Laird Scranton. He's here to talk about his new book, which will be available this Thanksgiving, November 24th. No, wait. Right before the show, breaking news. They started to arrive today. The new book is shipping and arriving. According to Peter Robbins, he got his today. It's titled The Mystery of Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. That's our show tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm doing a little tribute to William Bill Cooper. Tomorrow night. Yeah. You need a description of what I'm going to be doing tomorrow night? Just go to our website. I kind of leaked a little bit of it. But tomorrow night, our tribute to one William Bill Cooper. Wednesday night is going to be a special event. It's a Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom. But John is going to be co-hosting with me all night long. He's going to take your calls. We're going to do his Living in the Matrix, man. We're going to do that Wednesday night. We cannot have a week without Fader night and a week without John Rappaport. So we bumped everything up because Thursday, we're going to be doing that dinner thing with our family. And so are all of you. So there you go. We'll have a best of replay Thursday night. We're taking Thursday off. Everybody just enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend. All right. We are, and so are you. But Wednesday nights, we're going to be doing everything. So we're going to have open lines all night long. Very rarely do you have an opportunity to speak directly with John Rappaport. So there you go. And we're doing this as a Thanksgiving special for all of you. All right. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do, at JChurchRadio. As everybody knows, this is an interactive show. Twitter stays live to my left. I keep the chat rooms live to my right, far right. And then kind of at 1 o'clock is email. And email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. So right in front of me on 4 large monitors are all of you. Twitter, email, and chat rooms. Okay? It's that simple. This is completely interactive, and it's distracting, and I love every minute of it. All right? Use the hashtag F2B. That's our sandbox. That's our version of Twitter. Also, I want to remind everybody, man, these gifts are just gifts, man. I love them. They're all gifts. Gifts. Yeah. We sent out, Rita did this first, so I followed up with it. We've been looking for, as we're putting together our menu and everything for this Thursday, Rita hit me yesterday. She goes, cornbread. I said, yeah, let's do cornbread. That'll be fun on the table, right? So we're all good with that. And then we started looking at different recipes, and the recipe, she goes, well, what about that? I said, that's not cornbread. You can't have jalapenos in cornbread. You can't have green onions in cornbread. Can't. That's not cornbread. Cornbread is sweet and thick and heavy, and it's hot, and the melted butter, and that's. So we tried to find just these traditional recipes for cornbread. Couldn't do it. Everybody's got to mess it up with something, right? Just got to mess it up. So we put it out there. We put the feelers out there. We want the traditional cornbread recipe, the one that your mom made, the one that you love. And, so hit us with that, because tomorrow night we're going to do a dry run. We're going to cook up, the winning recipe tomorrow. We're going to test it and then talk about it on the show tomorrow night. All right? Let's see. I want to know who's got the bomb recipe. I don't want anything fancy. I don't want sun-dried tomatoes. I don't want any of that stuff. Onions. No. Give us your best recipe of the basic bomb cornbread. What is it? I don't want cheddar cheese on the top. I don't want panko. No. The bomb perfect Southern real deal recipe. And I've just said bomb like 3 times. I even tweeted that out. I think I F the tradition. What? No, man. I'm not gonna experiment on my family with something that's got, French fried onions on the top. I'm just gonna do it, man. So get us your recipe. Corn, lard, corn, butter, corn, lard. Yeah, pretty much. That's what I said to Rita last night. I said, man, it's like corn. It's like lard. So anyway, hit us with that. Seriously, hit us with your best recipes, and we're going to cook it up tomorrow and do a dry run before I hit my family with it. Because my family, every Thanksgiving, and I remember when we started doing this, 10, 15 years ago, we are a family of multi ethnic origins around the world, right? So this whole turkey, cranberries, mashed potatoes, as many times as we have done, stuffing, pumpkin pie, that we do this here in the States, we know what's going to hit the table. Oh, we're going to do a bomb mac and cheese too as well this year. And, green bean casserole, all that stuff. But is new to our family. So every year, man, I just want to hit them. I'm not going to hit them with some whack cornbread recipe. It ain't going to happen. I just want that cornbread. When you go to that barbecue place in the South and you get your stuff, right? And then you get that separate bag of cornbread, right? And it's always in that white bag, and you can see the grease, the butter soaking through the bag. That's the recipe I want. All right, so send it to us. All right, enough of that cornbread, man. I am right before a couple hours ago, Rita goes, man, I want to make cornbread right now. I want some corn. I'm like, yeah, we've been talking about it now for 24 hours. It's on the brain. Check out all of our sponsors. And after all of this cornbread, you're going to need Life Change Tea. Trust me on that. I found a spare bottle of vitamin C, by the way, which was procured by Rita. It's now in her studio. But Life Change Tea. And going through Thanksgiving weekend, you're going to need to double up on the Life Change Tea. Go to getthetea.com. Everybody's on the program here. All friends, family, workers, everybody here, the staff, we're all on the Life Change Tea program. Go to getthetea.com. Mention Jimmy when you order, either over the phone or online, and get yourself some free shipping. Also, River Moon Coffee. I have to say, the Fade to Black blend, watching all of the posts and tweets and email that we have gotten from everybody around the country loves their Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Get yours now. That's all you got to do. Go to the banner on our site. Use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order. And I got to tell you, after that Thanksgiving dinner, you're going to want that F2B Blend, man. That aroma going through the house. Nothing says the holidays like Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. There you go. Also, Studio Dome and their Fade or Not special. Yes, we have headphones coming, folks. It's right around the corner. Yeah, they're going to be cool, too. I think we have, ultimately, we're going to land 3 different pairs of headphones. More details on that to follow, but very, very cool and what we've got cooking. The Studio Dome Fade or Not special, which is a stereo portable Bluetooth sound system featuring the TWS True Wireless Stereo technology, 2 SBB2 speakers in a hard shell case, $129. You get the power cables. You get the adapters. These power cables power up, charge both speakers at the same time. Very, very cool technology. $129. Just in time for the holidays, too. Think about that. 60% off of your order. It's normally listed at $399. Promo code JCRTWS. All right, let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday today to one of my favorites, actually, Bjork. What was the name of her? She's 51 today. What was the name of her band? The Cranberries? What was her band called? They were great. Man, I'm brain freezing right now. Goldie Hawn today is 71. Our dead guy's birthday today, Harold Ramis, 1944 to 2014. Died at the age of 69. Screenwriter, director, of course, Caddyshack, Groundhog Day, National Lampoon's Vacation. Such a big part of our generation was Harold Ramis. He was an actor, too, as well. He was in Stripes. He's pretty good in Stripes, actually, and Ghostbusters, of course. But in May 2010, he contracted an infection that resulted in complications from autoimmune inflammatory vasculitis and lost the ability to walk. Harold Ramis died of complications to the disease on February 24th, 2014, at his home on Chicago's North Shore at the age of 69. Happy birthday, Harold Ramis. On this day in history, it finally happened. 2 Frenchmen in 1783. On this day, 2 Frenchmen make the first untethered hot air balloon flight, flying 5.5 miles over Paris in about 25 minutes. Fader fact, the town of Centralia, Pennsylvania, has been burning since 1962. That is a fader. That's one of the craziest stories ever. You just want to have a good read, go and Google Centralia, Pennsylvania. Absolutely amazing. Well, also today, that's tsunami warning has been downgraded from warning to advisory for Japan's Fukushima prefecture after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck off Honshu at about 5:59 a.m. Tuesday, right? And today's Monday, but Tuesday for them, 3:59 p.m. Monday Eastern time. And this is according to the Japanese Meteorological Agency. A tsunami wave of about 3 meters, 10 feet, was possible, according to the agency. And the U.S. Geological Survey put the magnitude at 6.9, striking 23 miles southeast of Nami off of the country's east coast. Now, so far, 2 aftershocks have been reported by the USGS, one at 5.4 and one at 4.8. I watched the live news feed all day today. Everybody evacuated. That was, man, they scared the crap out of when you have that big of an earthquake. And after everything that went down with Fukushima, it was a total holy crap moment for the world today. But it chilled out, so there we go. But probably even bigger news than that, and you probably missed it over the weekend. But the WHO no longer considers Zika a global health emergency. The Zika virus that has spread, allegedly, by the way, to 50 countries is no longer considered an international public health emergency. And the World Health Organization declared all of this at a press conference this past Friday. Of course, the mass media didn't make much of this because it's not fear porn, right? It's the opposite of fear porn. It's good news. The WHO labeled Zika an international emergency this past February. An international emergency. Scared the crap out of everybody. Now, I had said then, I'm going to stick to it, that this was going to come and go and there would be nothing of it. But more on that in just a bit. The CDC has been leading the Zika scare in the United States and playing the fear porn card in Brazil and around the world. It stressed Friday that despite, and I'm quoting here, the technical declaration by the WHO, Zika infection continues to be a serious threat to pregnant women and babies born to pregnant women with Zika. The CDC said there is still an urgent need to develop vaccines that can prevent infection and spread of the disease. More on this in just a second. I hate being right, by the way. I hate it. In this case, I'm happy. But now the WHO and the CDC are backtracking, backpedaling. They've got the car in reverse, fast. They went on saying the continuing mystery. Now listen to this, folks. The continuing mystery about the relatively few cases of microcephaly outside of Brazil is interesting. Most of the 2,300 confirmed cases of microcephaly are in, Brazil, with a few dozen also reported in Colombia, where there was an allegedly huge Zika outbreak, but almost no microcephaly. From the press conference on Friday came this gem, and I'm quoting here. The number of confirmed cases of microcephaly is much less than what we did imagine, end quote. What? What? And then there was this. We are investigating whether other factors could explain Zika's damage in Brazil's hardest hit northeast region, including genetic factors and environmental contaminants, end quote. Wait, slow down, man. Slow down. And this is exactly what is wrong with the world today, because mainstream media, the CDC, WHO, all predicted the end of the world. The MSM fear porn that went around from every sector of the media was nonstop. I had a 2-hour phone conversation with one of our favorite researchers. Person is a friend and somebody that I listened to. And I went round and round. I had said at that time during this conversation, just watch. In 2 months, the CDC will have another scare for us, and Zika will be gone. It'll be a distant memory. It'll be a bad dream. Watch. And this friend, this researcher said to me, and I'm quoting, it was out of control. Jimmy, you don't get it. I've seen the official studies. I've seen the reports. I've seen them from labs around the United States. I've seen the reports from universities, the testings, with thousands of this and thousands of that and confirmations of this. And it's the biggest thing ever in the history of the world. I've spoken with this guy and I've spoken with that guy. They are freaking out. They can't control it, man. All of us will have Zika and children with little heads in just a few days, and there's nothing we can do. And I was like, wait a minute. you better hope that I'm right and you're wrong. You better hope right now that I'm right, because of what you are saying. It's and I can't be part of this. I can't. This researcher responded back with, Jimmy, I'm paraphrasing here. It was like, Jimmy, you're not hearing me. I have insiders. The end is near. I was like, I can't. I know you're trying to swing me on this, but I'm not going to bite. I am not. I'm not going to be part of this fear porn. I had said that it was another CDC money play. And this researcher just freaked out. No. And I said, somebody out there is going to profit from the fear porn. And I stress this on this show to you. John Rappaport spoke about this ad nauseum. And then back in August, there was this. Washington, it's always about the money, man. Ugh. Washington moved $81 million from other areas of the Department of Health and Human Services, the HHS, to keep the vaccine money train moving along. HHS Secretary Sylvia Matthews Burwell said she will transfer $34 million from the agency to the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, and will also transfer another $47 million to the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, for the Zika vaccine. Now, even with the new money, the NIH still wants an additional $196 million in fiscal year 2017 to fully fund its Zika vaccine research. Why? Well, profits. That's why. The race to find protection against the Zika virus is fueled by something often missing from tropical disease research: the potential for big money. Listen to me. The prospect of a blockbuster vaccine against a mosquito-borne virus has accelerated the pace of development and attracted the interest of big drug makers, including GlaxoSmithKline and Takeda Pharmaceuticals. The most lucrative market is seen in travelers seeking inoculation against the virus that has moved rapidly, allegedly, across the Americas and is the only mosquito-borne disease also spread through, wait for it, sex. Scott Weaver, a virologist with the University of Texas, said it scares people. He says Europeans and Americans can pay a pretty high price for these kinds of vaccines, and they will. A vaccine could come to market in as little as, wait for it, 2 years. Even if the current outbreaks in Latin America and the Caribbean burn out by that time, done, people living in those regions are expected to want protection against a return of Zika, right? Tens of millions of travelers from the United States and other wealthy nations, including people on business trips with corporate-sponsored health coverage, there you go, are expected to get vaccines before visiting areas where Zika is circulating. There you have it. And the CDC money train continues down the tracks. It's unbelievable. The fear porn, great news. Let's make some money. The good news comes out, and nobody's talking about it. And there's got to be a way to keep that CDC money train on the tracks. But don't worry, my friends. Don't worry. This one's over, and I told you it would be. But we'll have another worldwide epidemic to talk about again next month. I promise. I do. And with that, you are welcome and happy Thanksgiving. Tonight, it just never ends, does it? It just never ends. For years on the show, for years, I keep saying it. The conspiracy of this and what the CDC does and what they go out there and do is just create another scare. A couple of startups out there get their funding. No vaccines are created. The stocks are traded and done, and millionaires go off and right off into the sunset, never to be heard from again. It's just the way that it works. It's crazy. But I'll have another one for you next month. And it'll be fun because I'll be able to talk about it again. It never stops. This is Fade to Black tonight. Very special guest, Laird Scranton. We're going to talk about his new book, Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. Tomorrow night, very special tribute to William Bill Cooper. Yeah, it's going to be good, too. Wednesday night, Fader Night Special. We should be talking about living in the Matrix with Rappaport, but after the Zika news, I'll give him the warning. We've got it covered. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Right after this short break, the one and only, right here, Laird Scranton on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fadernauts rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Tonight, our guest is Laird Scranton. We're going to discuss his new book, which is now shipping. It was going to be available on Thanksgiving, but it has been arriving today. That's according to Peter Robbins, by the way. The book is called The Mystery of the Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. All right, Laird, let's give this a second crack. How you doing?
I'm good. Sorry about that.
You sound wonderful. Okay, now, you have always been able to connect these dots back to pre-dynastic and ancient Egypt to these different civilizations and cultures around the world. And what did you find with Skara Brae?
Well, with Skara Brae, the Skara Brae site is in northern Scotland on Orkney Island. This is a place that is fairly remote. The site has been around since about the middle of the 1800s. It had been covered over. It was a small village of 8 chambers. It's interpreted as being the first farming village in northern Scotland. Prior to that, around 4000 BC, there had been single-family farms on Orkney Island, but suddenly around 3200 BC, they see the emergence of what looks like a farming village, the first one. The odd thing about it is that it was abandoned about 2600 BC and covered over for about 4,000 years until some storms accidentally uncovered a piece of it in the middle of the 1850s. They've been excavating it off and on ever since and researching it, but local researchers don't have anything to connect it to. They don't know, it doesn't connect to local Scandinavian styles of architecture or pottery, or and the artifacts they're finding there don't make a connection. So I had a friend email me, just a casual acquaintance email me and ask, did I think there could be Egyptian influences there since nobody else has a theory about what was going on there?
Right.
And I thought 3200 BC, which is when this village first appears, is too early for ancient Egypt. Dynastic Egypt doesn't even appear till around 3100 BC or after. So this is a little bit early for Egypt to be trying to mount a mission to all the way across to Europe, the other side of Europe, to be able to have some influences. So I did some research. I knew that the Dogon, this African tribe that I study in some of my books, this is a modern-day tribe, have traditions and cultures that date back that far. It looks like they were Egyptian at around 3200 BC. So I thought it wouldn't hurt to look into it, even though I didn't know anything about northern Scotland, that I might be able to find connections to the Dogon if there had been Egyptian influences. So working from that premise, I started with the very sparse set of evidence that really exists on Orkney Island and started making comparisons back and forth. And I realized that the Skara Brae village gives the outward appearance that's similar to a Dogon village. There are certain structures among this cluster of 8 chambers that are built very much like the Dogon build their buildings. The style of construction is the same. Then I came down to the concept of the houses at Skara Brae. Originally, all the houses there were built to the same plan. And I did a comparison and realized it's the same plan that the Dogon used to build their stone houses. So that was very encouraging. But beyond the simple match of the architecture, the Dogons say that there is symbolism associated with that house plan that goes with their religious concepts of how creation happened. These are cosmological concepts.
Right.
So simply by linking the architectural plan, I now had a basis for trying to interpret what's at Skara Brae in terms of Dogon language, in terms of Dogon practices, in terms of their cosmology, their system of symbols, and so forth. The house itself has some features that the researchers on Orkney Island feel are unique. Each house included a round room at one end that they said, they described it as a beehive-shaped cell, but they couldn't compare it to anything. For the Dogon, the overall plan of the house represents a sleeping woman or a sleeping goddess. The round room is her head. There are 2 long rectangular side rooms that represent her arms.
Right.
There's the square main room that represents her body cavity, with a hearth in the center that represents her heart. At least on Orkney Island, there's a hearth in the center. And then there's an entryway at the bottom that represents her sexual parts. So, knowing that we had a match on the plan, we could now apply other factors of Dogon culture to try to understand what we see on Orkney Island. To give you some examples, this wasn't couldn't have been just a simple farming village, because there were all sorts of other interesting things going on the island at around 3200 BC. There were a series of large megalithic carved sites a series that were built over a long period of time, over a period of about 600 years. But a series of related sites, which means that generation after generation on Orkney Island was involved in the building of these structures as sort of one intergenerational project. So that was something to look at. Could the Dogon cosmology shed any light on those structures? It starts with a standing stone called the standing stone of or the watchstone of Stennis.
Right.
That leads you to a stone circle that is called the standing stones of Stennis, and then it leads you to a burial mound called Maze Howe. And back in Neolithic times, there was a road that connected these sites in sort of a spiral around some bodies of water that led you to the Skara Brae village, where these 8 chambers, the farming village, existed.
When I look, I have to jump in and make one comment that I've always tripped on when it came to Skara Brae, and that is the depiction of the feminine, or just a human figure in general, right, with the round room at the top. You look at Skara Brae, and there is no question about this kind of symbology and how that they laid this out. Every house is a definite human figure. This isn't left to interpretation or imagination. It is right there and hits you in the face.
That's right. All of the original houses were built that way. Now, over time, over the 600 years that the site was inhabited, eventually they rebuilt a bunch of the structures. One of the structures takes the same form as what the Dogon call a discussion house. This is a place that's intimately connected to keeping peace in a Dogon village. And Skara Brae is also understood to have been a very peaceful place. They haven't found any weapons, any weaponry.
Right.
They haven't found any armaments of defense. This is a very peaceful place. The way the discussion house works for the Dogon is that if any tribes people have a dispute arise, they're required to go to this house, which is built half high. It's not even a full height building. So you have to sit down while you're there, and they're not allowed to leave until they work out the problem.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Laird.
No, that's okay. So it looks to me as if at Skara Brae we have a matching structure, or a very similar structural form. Every Dogon village had one of these. So that's another architectural connection between the two.
Now, which are you talking about? The large central house in the middle of Skara Brae? Is that the one that looks most similar to the Dogon?
Yeah, there's one that's particularly rounded that has a square door in the center of it with a large stone lintel over the top of the doorway. It's sort of set down in between. There are stone passageways between the structures at Skara Brae so that people could walk without and be protected from weather as they moved from structure to structure. But this one takes a very similar form. There are comparative pictures in the book between that structure and comparable Dogon structure. It's called the Toguna for the Dogon.
Now, for 3000 BC, I'm going to go straight here. This seems pretty advanced for, the rest of the world in Stone Age, man, what was going on around the world. This is a pretty advanced, well thought out complex.
It is. Especially when you take into account the series of megalithic sites, there's clearly something going on here, and they don't have any way of referencing what that was based on local information. Now, one of the problems they have is that they they don't have any linguistic roots for any of the names of things in the Orkney Island region. There's the standing stones of Stennes, this stone circle. Well, I know from my studies with other cultures who have these same kinds of traditions, it's a stone circle could serve as a calendar. It was there to help sort out when to plant crops and when to harvest them and things like that. When's winter coming? Let's track when the solstice happens, and the shadows of these stones help them do that. Well, there's an Egyptian word sten that means to distinguish between winter and summer. It means to essentially it defines the concept of a calendar. Each of these sites, example, there's in northern Scotland, the concept of a ness refers to a headland that sticks out into the water. Basically, it relates to the concept of a nose of a person.
Right.
But for the Egyptians, the concept of a ness refers to like a leaf of a plant. It's compared to a body of water that surrounds a point of land. So you have the same word ness from the local languages on Orkney Island and from the Egyptians that both could describe the same locales but do it in sort of opposite perspectives. All the way along, even down to the ancient name for Scotland itself, they don't have etymological roots for. They can't explain why Scotland was even called Scotland. But when you look at it from the cosmological perspective of the Dogon and the Egyptians, suddenly that plays out. There is a term that can easily relate to why it's called Scotland.
Right.
You have ancient names for the island that nobody knows what they meant, but you look at them in terms of the Dogon and the Egyptians, and it makes sense why it was called what it was called.
Was it easy? I know how your brain works, and as you're looking at all of this, was it pretty easy for you? I mean, was it just sticking straight out in front of you?
It took a little bit of research initially, but once I got the key of that architecture, all sorts of pieces fall into place because I have enough of an overview of how different cultures look at these things to understand particular words when they're used a certain way or particular shapes when they're used a certain way. The series of sites that lead to the Skara Brae village repeat a pattern that is familiar. What they represent are progressive shapes of how matter forms, starting from the time matter in its wave-like form is perceived and starts to turn into a particle that passes through certain stages that Dogon describe. And these megalithic sites repeat those same shapes in the right sequence. All the way to where they get you to the Skara Brae village, conceptually that represents a concept of a bundle of dimensions. In science, string theorists refer to that as a Calabi-Yau space. It's the first coherent structure of matter that forms from a scientific point of view. So you can look at this from ancient perspectives, but you can also look at it from a modern scientific perspective, and you can sort of triangulate on what these things represented. Then you look at the words that go along with those sites and use the Dogon and the Egyptian language, and there's a language called Faroese that was an ancient language on Orkney Island that can be compared to those other two languages. Cross comparison.
And when Skara Brae was sacked, sacked is the wrong word, but it was
abandoned.
It was abandoned, but it was plundered, I should say. What happened with everything that was removed back then in the early 1900s? Is there any of this stuff that is left around or been verified that it came from Skara Brae?
Well, actually, we're fortunate in that it wasn't plundered because it was covered over with nobody even knew that it was there for thousands of years. Now, in 1850, the series of storms hit the island, and one corner of the Skara Brae site becomes uncovered. But the guy who owned the land that it was on was a very wealthy man. His title was the Laird of Scale.
Yes. Yeah, no.
Okay. And he invested a large portion of his fortune and the next 8 years of his life to being sure that it was excavated properly. He brought in some fairly well-known Egyptian Egyptologists, archaeologists to take a look at the site. Big names in the United Kingdom to come make sure that this was excavated properly. So they really never lost track of artifacts. It's just that it's not the same kind of a situation as ancient Egypt, where you have endless statues and painted walls and hieroglyphic text. You're really dealing with the detritus of the life of a group of farmers. It looks like in this village. They can dig through the chambers are bermed on the outside with dirt and sand and fill and grass and things like that that help insulate the outside of the wall, but are also contains a lot of the leftovers things from their daily life. The things that we would toss out are in that fill. They can go through that and they can determine a lot of things about what life was like.
As we head into this break, we've got about 60 seconds. What about, because the way that it was discovered was, totally by accident. Do you think that there's other sites up and down the coast that are permanently buried that we haven't, discovered yet?
I'm sure there probably are. I mean, there are similar structures. If you go to Shetland Island, which is just north and to the east of Orkney Island, you have some similar structures. Around Ireland and Scotland, there are some other locations that are similar. But this is particular in that it's very early, and it also really clearly represents a village. There was village life going on here. There may have been up to 20 families living here at a time. But somehow, in between their farming, they also had the time and the mind to go build these megalithic sites.
Right. And that's the fascinating part for me right there. And it also indicates, when we come back, I'm going to bring up Göbekli Tepe with intention, but there is a lot of different things going on here. You have to collect the stones, you have to design, you have to quarry, you have to build, you have to have the knowledge to do all of that. You still have to farm, feed, and get all of that out of the way too. So it's organization, it's culture, it's a town, it's a village, and that's what I see with Skara Brae. It's fascinating. Let's take a break right here. When we come back, I've got to bring up Göbekli Tepe. I have to. There's something in my eyes that says there's something going on here. And I'm sure Laird has something to say about that. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Laird Scranton. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
How you doing? This is Jimmy from Zipa, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Black Friday and Cyber Monday. All you people that like to procrastinate, the people that like to go ahead on Black Friday the night before and they camp out waiting for that great deal. Well, hello, newsflash, the deal for Zipa is now. The deal for Zipa is today. We do not reward procrastination. If you want a great price on a Zipa, go to Zipa.com and buy now. If you're going to go ahead and procrastinate, we're going to penalize you for it. What does that mean? That means the price of all the Zipas go up on Black Friday. And you know what happens on Cyber Monday? It goes up again. This is the last opportunity that you will have to get this great price for the Zipa. This is the time now. You wait till Black Friday, the price is going up. Because remember, sleep is priceless. Go to Zipa.com, that's ZYPPAH.com, and get the deal now.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Work with your doctor when taking medications. Make Protovite part of your healthy lifestyle.
HealthForLiberty.com is your source for Protovite, a powerful nutritional supplement that's a true breakthrough for your health. Poor digestion makes it nearly impossible to absorb the nutrition your body needs. Protovite is a liquid multi-nutrient formula with patent-pending absorption technology and the highest quality ingredients to nourish every cell in your body.
My name is Sandra White. 6 weeks ago, when I started taking Protovite, I was on 14 medications, from everything for blood pressure to fibromyalgia. In the first 10 days, my blood sugar dropped 50 points, and my fibromyalgia pain is gone. And so was 12 of the 14 medications that I was taking. I'm 66, living life and loving it.
Go to HealthForLiberty.com right now. That's HealthForLiberty.com.
Thank you, Protovite, for giving my life back.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We're going to have a short week this week, 3 nights on the air. We're going to take Thursday night off, Thanksgiving Day. Tonight, our guest is Laird Scranton. We're talking about his new book, which is now arriving. If you have pre-ordered the book, it is now out there. The Mystery of Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. And one of the points in the book, Laird, is that you talk about is the connection with the Dogon of Mali. How would the Dogon have made it to? Are you making a direct connection to Scotland, as in the Dogon tribe made it to Scotland, and how would they have done that?
Well, that's a really interesting question. My first reservation was that it didn't seem credible to me that the Egyptians and the Dogon, who at that time were Egyptian, I believe,
right,
could reasonably have made it. Their culture wasn't organized enough in Egypt at that time to do it. Now, when we look at the house forms, one really interesting point is there's a hearth in the center of the Skara Brae house. There isn't a hearth in the center of the Dogon house. The Dogon house, the Dogon live in a very hot area of Africa, in the northwest Africa. They don't need a hearth in the middle of their house. And I thought it was very interesting that when that plan was implemented on Orkney Island, that when somebody added the hearth, they added it in keeping with what the symbolism of the house was supposed to be. They put it right where the heart ought to be.
Right.
I thought that was very, very, somebody had a lot of insight to do that. It wasn't until later that certain points like that started to add up for me, and I realized that I might be looking at things backwards. That it wasn't that they added the hearth in Scotland, it's that it started in Scotland, that when the Dogon moved to Africa, they removed the hearth because they didn't need it.
There you go.
Now, that perspective is a tough one to get your arms around. The way that it sort of plays out is you have to understand that in the perspective of these cultures that have this ancient civilizing plan, this ancient cosmological system, what they consistently say is that in ancient times, this plan was instructed to them, and it was instructed to them at remote sites like Göbekli Tepe, who you were talking about, and a site like Skara Brae. Now we go to Orkney Island, where we see what look like stages of creation constructed on a human scale with a road that leads past them all. Essentially, a person could walk through. It'd be like walking through a You've seen these displays of the human body that you can walk through, and you walk through a person's heart, and you walk through their bodily organs and things to learn about them. This has all the appearance of an instructional sanctuary.
What about some of the other things for me with Skara Brae, and I know that you have noticed all of these too. It's the intricacy of the shelves, the bed, the cabinets, dressers, seats, storage boxes. You know, they really had it together for 3000 BC. Did that trickle down? That kind of design on the inside of the house, did that trickle down to the Dogon too? Did it make its way into Egypt?
Yes, actually, that sort of thing did. I mean, the Dogon structures are very similar. Their modes of construction are very similar. Although in Africa, where the Dogon live now, they can build out of mud. I mean, they have a warm enough climate that if they make something out of mud, it'll hold its shape. They don't need to have stone to do everything.
Right.
They occasionally do build from stone, and when they do, it looks like what we see at Skara Brae. In the first dynasty of Egypt, we begin to see burial chambers that have survived. This is part of the archaeological record. Now, in Egypt, there's a long tradition that burial chambers represented houses. And so I thought, if I could trace back far enough to a point that was close enough to where Skara Brae was, I might bump up against one that repeated that same plan, if burial chambers are supposed to be houses.
Right.
So I actually found one. There's the first dynasty burial at Abu Omar, trying to remember the name of the place. It's the first dynasty burial.
Abydos?
No, this is...
First dynasty.
I'll find the name here for us.
Okay. Well,
anyway, first dynasty burial, that is exactly the same plan. There's a photograph of it in the book. It's the same round room at one end that represents the head.
Right.
The same main body cavity square room in the center, the same entryway at the bottom. Now, in the Dogon plans, there are actually documented drawings the anthropologists made of the Dogon houses, and what the anthropologists represent as being the quote-unquote main house of the Dogon is a match for what we see at the Egyptian site. So we now have connectivity within 100 years of each other between the Skara Brae house plan and the burial site in Egypt that's supposed to represent a house. Now, what's interesting for me was that I realized that the Dogon stages that they describe for how matter forms don't stop at the 8 clustered chambers that the Skara Brae farming village represented. They move on upward from that and finally end at the atom. So I thought, could there have been additional attempts to represent some of those on Orkney Island? Well, the next stage for the Dogon and scientifically is the stage at which fundamental particles form against what scientists call the background field. And the way the Dogon represent that is with an agricultural field. We also know there was an agricultural field next to the Skara Brae village that they were working. Now, for the Dogon, that field works on 2 levels. It's mythological, but it's also an actual real-world field that they plant every year. It's the field of their top priest, who's called the Eru priest. And so the field is called the field of the Eru priest. And so I was thinking that if the Egyptians had a similar concept, if the Dogon were Egyptian at the time the Skara Brae site was built, and we're talking about the agricultural field next to Skara Brae, that the Egyptians ought to have a similar concept to that field of the Eru priest. Well, the Egyptian word for field is seket, and there's a term seket eru in Egypt that refers to something called the field of reeds, which was the Egyptian concept of heaven. It ties to the later Greek concept of the Elysian fields. So both the Egyptians and the Greeks also dealt with this concept on 2 levels. It was mythological from one point of view, but it was an actual geographical place from another point of view. Now, when you look at the paintings the Egyptians did, the animals they represent as being in the Elysian fields, You look at in the second Eru, and the descriptions the Greeks give of the geography of the Elysian fields, they even describe where it's located, they assign names to it. It's all Orkney Island stuff. These are animals that are indigenous to Orkney Island. All the key elements they describe of it being a very windy place and being a place on the edge of the ocean surrounded by inlets of water. All of this stuff is correctly describes Skara Brae. The Greeks even go so far as to refer to it as Okeanos.
Oh, no, really? Okay.
Yes. Now, in the Egyptian culture, their references to this place of heaven, this place of death, are that their conception is that it lies far to the west. The Egyptologists have come in and sort of minimized those references. They say, well, no, they're not really talking about way far to the west. They're talking just the west bank of the Nile River. And so there are all these references that can be taken on multiple levels that the Egyptologists have chosen to interpret as being very close to Egypt, not very far away.
And what about what about the symbology itself, or maybe even hardcore symbols? Were those similar as well?
No, there really hasn't been. There aren't really any inscriptions at Skara Brae, which makes sense from one point of view, because if the Dogon have preserved a culture that is reflective of what we saw at Skara Brae, the Dogon don't have a written language, so we wouldn't really expect to find writing at Skara Brae if that theory held water. Writing didn't appear in Egypt until just immediately after this period of time.
Right.
That's part of how we can place the Dogon relationship to the Egyptians is the Egyptians do have writing very early, and the Dogon don't have it. So the relationship must have been before writing was introduced.
Now let's get to the megalithic structures that are just outside of Skara Brae. What are we dealing with there? Okay,
we don't actually have structures that go beyond that village on Orkney Island. Although you do have additional structures around the island that are sort of peripherally represented. You've got stone cairns and burial cairns and things like that. Quite a number of them that are actively open to the public to look at and have been researched by archaeologists and so forth. You've got a village they're excavating called the Ness of Brodgar that is down near where the other megalithic sites that is under active excavation. They're not quite sure what that was used for. And there are Egyptian perspectives on all of these things. I mean, we can tie them to reasonable correlates based on what the Egyptians tell us were located near the Elysian fields.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the images here. Was there a cosmic or a calendar situation too that are similar to? And I want to definitely take this to Göbekli Tepe, because visually when I look at Skara Brae, I can't help but think of Göbekli Tepe, even though with Göbekli Tepe there's been no proof that anybody actually lived there. But visually, they are so similar.
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities. The time frame is there's a big gap. Göbekli Tepe is about 10,000 BC, and Skara Brae isn't until 3,200 BC.
Right.
So there's 7,000 years to account for in there about what happened. But just as the Göbekli Tepe site was deliberately buried and covered over, and nobody's quite sure why, there are sites on Orkney Island that were also very deliberately buried over, but the reasons are a little clearer on Orkney Island. At the time the island was abandoned, around 2600 BC, there was a final feast that happened at the Ness of Brodgar, and at least 400 animals were slaughtered. These are probably domesticated animals. If they were planning on leaving, they didn't want to leave the animals to starve, and so they had this feast to make sure that those animals didn't go to waste. And when the feast was done, they left bones, carefully placed bones, all around this site. But not every bone, just certain bones. They were just thigh bones, tibias, that were left all around the site.
Interesting.
Now, the way Egyptian language works, words have multiple meanings. That's the way the Dogon language works and the way the Egyptian language works. In Egypt, it's really it plays out more like homonyms, like there, and there in English, So the word that means tibia in the Egyptian language also means to leave under duress. So you can take the bones that were left there as a possible symbol explaining to a later culture, look, it's not clear why we left here, but we left under duress. We had to leave in a hurry. There are other things they did at that site that also tell us additional things about where they might have gone and what the circumstances might have been. There's one symbol they left there that defines the site as being an ark. There's an Egyptian word that means to cover over that's pronounced ark. And an ark is a Dogon term that applies to the spiral shape that gets created when matter forms that's being represented here on the ground with these megalithic sites.
Now, what do you make of? I know that there hasn't been a whole the inscriptions or any writings or anything at Skara Brae are rare, but wasn't there some kind of hieroglyph that was found in House 7?
Yeah, there were some hieroglyphs, some shapes that were found there, and actually one of those themselves. I don't have direct correlates to. There are some symbols that were found at a contemporaneous site down at Newgrange. There's a symbol of the sun that has some rays of light coming out from it that is a pretty close match for an Egyptian symbol that's pronounced Aru. Now, if we're talking about this region of the world being the Sekhet Aru, then that makes sense that you would have the Egyptians referring to that shape as Aru. The ancient name for there were two ancient names for Orkney Island. One was Argot. Ar means ascending, like climbing up a ladder, and Gat means gateway or doorways. These are the ascending gateways or stages of matter. Another name was Orkneyar. Now, there are Egyptian words, okay, to back up just a little bit, the way Orkney Island is situated, if a boat were to follow the Atlantic currents northward, the currents would lead them naturally up just a little bit north of Orkney Island and then swing them back around towards Scotland and Ireland, right past Orkney Island. There are Egyptian words that correlate to this term Orkney that means to approach Ireland by boat.
What would be the reason to settle here? Is it fishing? Was there something else? Or could it have been by accident? What I find fascinating when it comes to Skara Brae is that it seems to be small, right? Like, could it have been an accidental settlement and then that they later left? Maybe they were rescued. I don't know. But
there is a theory that says that the Skara Brae site was a remnant of a shipwreck, an Egyptian shipwreck, and linguistically there are reasons to think that could be true, but those same reasons play out in other ways that say that it's not. From my point of view, Orkney Island is a really, really accessible place, a very easy place to get to. Now, about 100 years after the Skara Brae site is founded, you suddenly see agriculturally based kingships appearing in 4 regions of the world all at the same moment. And researchers don't understand why they appeared. One was in Egypt that was associated with the word Taru. One was in Ireland associated with the word Aru. One was in China associated with the word Iru. And one was in South America associated with the word Peru. Now, those words in the Egyptian language have other sets of meanings. On one level of understanding, they refer to the 4 cardinal points. They refer to sunrise and sunset, and the concepts of upper and lower, which are south and north from the Egyptian perspective. So we're talking about the 4 cardinal points, roughly the places where those kingships were located. Another point of view, those words represent 4 stages of agriculture. They represent an unplanted field, a planted field, a field with crops growing in it, and granaries where crops were stored after they were cultivated.
Somebody just tweeted, Brian just tweeted, he goes, I've got an oddball theory. Founders of Göbekli Tepe abandoned it 9,000 years ago, head to build Skara Brae, abandon it, and head to Africa. Thoughts? Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad at all. And I think that the people who were in charge of things initially in these agricultural kingships, including in Egypt, which is Africa, were the top students and the sort of the teachers' aides. The Dogon at that period of time looked to have been clerics who were doing actual instruction on Orkney Island, and it looks like these clerics and their students became the royalty and the priests of places like ancient Egypt and ancient China and maybe Corral down in Peru and the first kingships in Ireland.
Well, now, Laird, I have to jump in and say one thing for the audience. They need to understand where we're talking about. Skara Brae is so north, and don't think this is some kind of island off of the coast that you could swim to, right? That's not what we're talking. It is so far north, so it's got to be cold, right? Is it ever warm?
Now it is, but it looks as if at the time, at 3200 BC, that it had a pretty
nasty,
enviable climate.
Right.
It was. It lent itself very well to agriculture, and it looks like just as the site itself was accessible with easy bays, harbors to land a boat in, and things like that, that the climate was also really accommodating.
Well, who would have made it to Skara Brae off of the United Kingdom proper? At 3000 BC, how would you access this island?
Well, okay. First of all, the first thing to understand is that if someone was teaching fundamental concepts of how matter forms on that island,
right,
the question of transportation really isn't an issue.
How so?
Because anybody who knew that stuff was certainly capable of getting around.
Oh, I get you. Okay.
So I don't really see, even though the traditional viewpoint is that there should have been no way for people to get back and forth, if somebody understood how matter formed at 3200 BC, transportation isn't an issue.
What is we're heading into a break. This may be a long answer, but with Skara Brae and that general area with those islands, what was the population at 3,000? Let's go to 4,000 BC. Let's go take another 1,000 years back. What was the population of these islands back then? I mean,
even now it's pretty sparsely populated. It's not a very populous place.
Right.
But they've done DNA studies and discovered that it's a surprisingly diverse place. They have DNA that came from all parts of the globe, still existing in people who are residents on Orkney Island.
And what,
including 1% of the men on Orkney Island have DNA markers that link them to the Berbers and the North African tribes. I mean, this is Egypt and Dogon.
Right. And what about Turkey?
Turkey also. I mean, they've come up with. They did a study, and they simply can't explain why it's one of the most genetically diverse places on the planet. Now that goes along with the idea that groups from various cultures might have been brought there at one time to instruct.
Armenians?
I believe it. I would believe it. I mean, it makes sense to me that there was movement from Turkey across Europe to the UK at some time in the past.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area. I just can't. It's such a small settlement that, to me, there must be more there that we just haven't discovered yet. Is there any active archaeological sites or looking for other civilizations? And what about bones and skeletal remains too as well?
Well, 5,000 years ago is too far back for there to have been, except under absolutely perfect circumstances, you're not going to find bones of people. So there aren't a lot of bone remains at that site. But there are other things that would survive. Mostly things that are stone or metal are going to be the things that have survived. But in the traditions of the Dogon, 8 tribespeople were said to have been instructed at one go, sort of at one time. They would take 8 tribespeople out of a tribe, train them in this civilizing plan, send them back to train everybody else. And all around the planet, we have traditions of that. You know, South America or China or elsewhere, you have the tradition of 8 quasi-mythic ancestors who came bringing civilizing skills.
Fascinating. Let's take a break right here. When we come back, one of the things that I want to touch upon is the orientations to the homes in Skara Brae. Look to me, I just want you to confirm this. We'll talk about it when we come back. They all seem to tilt at the same angle. There's something going on there, Laird, and let's talk about that when we come back. And all of the round rooms are off kilter just a bit, but they're all at the same angle. That has to represent something. Our guest tonight, Laird Scranton. His new book is The Mystery of the Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. I'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Did you know 40% of all cancer could be prevented? That's a fact. Along with maintaining appropriate body weight and regular exercise, the American Institute for Cancer Research and the USDA confirm that eating 9 to 11 servings of fruits and vegetables every day is the key. Now ask yourself, am I at risk? How many servings of fruits and vegetables did I eat today? Balance of Nature has solved this problem and provides an easy and affordable way to consume over 10 servings of 31 different whole fruits and vegetables every day.
Call now to find out how to get your free month's supply of Balance of Nature. Call 800-2468-751. That's 800-2468-751. Call now, 800-2468-751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com.
Use promo code TSL.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store. So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If your home has hard water, then it's likely that limescale is clogging your pipes, damaging your appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars each year. You can eliminate limescale in the entire house with HydroCare products available at Wave Home Solutions. Easy and efficient with no maintenance, no salts, no chemicals, and no coils. And you can buy with confidence from Wave Home Solutions. Performance guaranteed. Just go to bestwater411.com. That's bestwater411.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back. Our guest tonight, Laird Scranton. We're discussing his new book, which is shipping, The Mystery of Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. Now, Laird, there's no question to me, as I've always looked at, I've been fascinated with Skara Brae for years. When I look at the orientation, everything seems to be laid out with intelligence and high technology. There's an angle here that is consistent throughout the village. And then you have 7 and 8, houses 7 and 8, which are nearly identical, but facing the other direction. What is going on?
Okay, before I address that, I'll mention that Egyptian site, that First Dynasty Egyptian site, I wasn't able to drag the name out of memory for. It was called Minshat Abu Omar.
Oh, yes, Abu Omar,
that's
yes.
That's where the house-shaped burial was. Alignments are an interesting question, and they're also an interesting problem. The difficulty is this, that I don't believe that we can absolutely count on alignments, calculating what alignments were in ancient times, looking backwards from right now. There's a problem at around 709 BC that something big happened. Every total eclipse of the sun that's happened since 709 BC, we can use computer programs to calculate and verify the location and the date of the total eclipse.
Right.
But there were lots of total eclipses reported before that time. Not a single one can be verified using that same software. Something big happened. There are other fluctuations in the planet that can be measured that happened at that time. Radiometric dating doesn't work across that boundary of 709 BC. So alignments are a little bit problematic because you can try to make a statement that such and such aligns to such and such a star, but if it's before 709 BC, we really don't have a way of verifying that. We're really only guessing, maybe from context. Now, alignment is important in the mindset of the cosmology we're dealing with, and ultimately there are reasons for that. It's because the method that's used to align these structures, which look like, it sounds sort of intuitively, it sounds like this ought to be high technology, but it's really very low technology. It's accomplished using a stick, an empty field, and the human body. There's a placement of a series of geometric figures that were measured out using the cubit, which is the distance from the elbow to the tip of the middle finger, or alternately it's the average pace of a person. And this is geometry that works regardless of how big or small the figures are, as long as they're measured consistently.
The same.
So you don't need an absolute refined unit of measure, consistent unit of measure to do it. Each person can measure their own, and it still works using their body part. So alignment is important, and I believe that that's part of what would have been taught at Skara Brae. But I'm not prepared to say that the structures themselves were meant to align to anything particular. The guesswork is that if it's in the mindset of the same cosmology, we're aligning to the cardinal points, to where the sun rises and where the sun sets, and to north and south. And this easy way of evoking east-west and north-south aligned lines to do that.
Well, when you look at this, when they've deliberately built 5, 6, or maybe even 7, it depends on how you want to count these specific rooms and structures, that are absolutely facing in one direction. And then, house number 8 and house number 7 are nearly identical, but they're pointing in exactly the opposite direction. It's like 20 degrees off, pointing in the other direction, done with intent.
Right, and that also could be symbolic. There are cross-regional reversals in symbolism that happen at about the same time Skara Brae was around. You're probably familiar that the very early traditions were matriarchal traditions, and then when you get into dynastic Egypt, suddenly where you used to have mother goddesses, suddenly you have gods who are emphasized.
Right.
Well, that kind of reversal doesn't just happen in Egypt. It happens all over the world at about the same moment. And there are other kinds of symbolic reversals where it starts out as one thing and ends up as something else, but on opposite sides of the world, places that shouldn't have been in communication with each other. A good example of that kind of effect is the change in the year from 360 days to 365. We have cultures all over the world that observed a 360-day year for thousands of years, and then just after 709 BC, all of them decide at the same moment, or approximately the same moment, to switch to a 365-day calendar. To my way of thinking, that only happens with a cross-cultural influence. That suggests to me there was an actual change in the length of the year.
Who did it first?
Who did it first?
Yeah, who switched to 365 first? Because the Egyptians, they had that marked off, that calendar, which basically is what we use today anyway, except for the addition of 5 days. But
that's a very tough question to answer, because as part of my book, Point of Origin, I was researching, actually as part of the book, Velikovsky Heresies, I was researching the Egyptian calendar, because the traditional viewpoint is the Egyptians had a 365-day year very early on. There's a symbol that indicates that the Egyptian year started with the heliacal rise of Sirius. That's something that happens on an annual basis, and it indicates that they had a solar year. But what isn't clear is that it was a 365-day solar year. And all the Egyptian references are equivocal. They can be taken one way or the other. I asked my friend John Anthony West to consult with friends he has who are experts on the Egyptian calendar. I said, I need one unequivocal fact here that says they had a 365-day year early on in Egypt, and none of them could provide it.
It's tough to do. I've talked to John about that too as well, and when we look at it's so funny that you bring that up, because when we talk about Egyptian facts, right? These facts that are there, that are repeated over and over again, it's hard to find the origin of those facts.
Right, and part of what I have to do to be able to pin things down is to boil it down to at least one unequivocal fact. And who can tell me that? What expert can tell me this? There's damage that was done to Mars. It looks like it was impacted by another planet. And there was a Caltech study done that said that happened millions of years ago. So I tracked down a person who was on the team that did the study, and I said, what is it that tells us that that happened millions of years ago? And what she wrote back was, well, everybody knows that there haven't been bodies of the size of a planet roaming around the solar system since that time that could have done this.
Oh, that was the answer.
Sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It
Right.
couldn't happen later because we don't believe it could have happened later.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're so right on that. It is so hard because it has been repeated so much, right? And then it gets into the written record so much that it gets accepted as fact, but yet trying to go back and get to the absolute pinpoint of all of this, it's difficult to do, if not impossible.
Yep. And so part of the trick is finding the one guy back there who happened to mention the one stray fact that nobody else is talking about, and picking up on it.
And where did he get his piece of information?
Right.
Right. Now, the other thing that I want to address here is at Göbekli Tepe, all of this is to my own eye, and I don't hear direct references to this, but my eye says everything at Göbekli Tepe is like off about 10 degrees, right? Everything lean, nothing is north and south or east, and everything is just off by that little increment that I also see at Skara Brae, and I think it just stands out, and it's very obvious.
Right. I mean, you go down to Mexico, and there are entire complexes where every building is 6 degrees off of true north.
Bingo.
Then you go to China, and every building in a complex is off by a comparable number of degrees, the other direction from true north. And all of it makes it look as if there had actually have been changes in the orientation of the planet. It's interesting because that's one of the concepts that ties to Skara Brae. One of the potential meanings of the word Skara Brae means overthrown boat or overturned boat. And that refers to a cosmological concept that deals with this. The idea is, I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of a great year or the idea of the Yuga cycle.
Of course.
Walter Cruttenden, his feeling has been that that's caused by a rotation that happens between the Earth and the stars of Sirius, that there's an additional rotation we haven't accounted for. I believe that that's true, but the rotation looks to me to have been the influence of something called Barnard's Loop, which is a spiraling birthplace of stars that's so faint you can't see it with the naked eye, but it centers on the belt stars of Orion. And the rotation of that spiral looks to me as if it has the potential to influence all the stars around it to rotate.
Well, which is fine, and I hear you, and the procession that you're referring to there. Again, and I like Walter's work and Jason Martell, and I appreciate it. But how could the ancients have ever known about this without heavy astronomy and telescopes?
Right. Now, I had no idea that Barnard's Loop was even there.
Right.
The way I discovered it was I followed Dogon references that pointed me to it. Actually, Dogon and Egyptian references that ended up pointing me to it. That I ended up keying some values into Google to try to find out how these things related to Orion, and it told me that Barnard's Loop existed. Now, when you image it with time-lapse photography, it looks you can see the spiral centered on one of the. It looks like it's centered on one of the stars of the belt of Orion.
Now, does that explain this 10-degree or 6-degree offness?
The way that it could explain that is that rotation, which has gravitational and potentially electromagnetic effects, the suggestion in the traditions that I'm studying is that every so often it's natural for the planet to change its orientation, to tip because of electromagnetic effects.
That's fascinating. That right there is fascinating. If we're going to continue this. I want to back up really quick. The dating, the 3000 BC dating, 3100 BC dating at Skara Brae, who did that dating and what's it based on?
That 3200 BC dating comes from the archaeologists who who continue to work on that site. It's a result of carbon dating of material that came out of the burning of these structures. Anything that was biological, anything that was a piece of wood or a piece of vegetable material or whatever, they can do carbon dating on it, and they have fudge factors to try to get them past that 709 BC date. But these are the same measurements that the traditional timeline of history, of ancient history, are based on. So they have a certain amount of credibility because they've been cross-checked by historians, one way and the other.
Is there a possibility that it could be much, much, much older?
Not really, because of the way that it lines up with the Dogon stuff. There are enough factors between the Dogon and the Egyptians that point to that exact same era as being when these structures were in use. For example, there's another example at Göbekli Tepe, the culture that, from my perspective, brings that symbology of Göbekli Tepe forward to later cultures. One of their traditions was to carve statues out of natural outcroppings of rock, especially carvings of animal shapes and things. Well, in Egypt, you have the Sphinx, which was carved from a natural outcropping of rock, and that seems to have alignments that date it to about the same era as Göbekli Tepe. And so from my perspective, we've really got two choices. Either the Sphinx and the pyramids were alignments were made for their placement at 10,000 BC, or else sometime at whatever point they were built, someone had the capability of retrospectively calculating what the alignment should have been. I don't really believe that second piece.
Oh, that's crazy. Possible, though. It's possible.
It's possible, yeah, but the most likely thing to me is, stylistically, the Sphinx looks like it comes out of this era that just immediately followed Göbekli Tepe.
Now, with Skara Brae, this is, I mean, what came first? And this is what I mean. We have Egypt, and we have these other cultures around the world that all seem to do things at around 3000 BC. Skara Brae did the same thing. How could these cultures have communicated and shared this knowledge? Somebody came first. And if it all happened at the same time, could it have been something even beyond, boats and ears and communication verbally? Could it have been something else? Could it have been a conscious communication? Could it, you know what I mean? Or something else, one teacher teaching all of these cultures the same thing?
Well, in the 1800s, there were numerous attempts made to establish one culture as the starting point and trace it forward to the others.
Right.
And all of those attempts fell apart because they bumped up against contradictions that said that can't be the answer. From my perspective, based on what the cultures that share this tradition say, you would expect that if one of their famous ancestors was the one to set up pieces of this, that one of the cultures would remember that old great ancestor so-and-so was the one who invented this thing. But when you get to the bottom of the traditions, what they're all saying is that this was an instructed tradition, that some teacher who understood the science of it in a way that the ancient cultures didn't themselves, deliberately taught this system of symbols and associated them with civilizing processes. And the timing of it is, the earliest example I have is Göbekli Tepe at 10,000 BC, which I see it has immediate effects in Egypt. It looks like there was an immediate attempt to establish agriculture in Egypt at 10,000 BC, or just after.
Right.
But then the tradition also passes down through India into the south of Egypt at Elephantine around 4,000 BC, and there are influences there that I can connect. It looks like it passed across Europe and down into the UK by 3200 BC, and then another set of influences from the training at Skara Brae established dynastic Egypt at around 3100 BC. So you now have these three sets of influences competing in Egypt. It's part of the reason why the symbolism is so difficult and the whole concept of religion is so difficult. You've got different perspectives on the same stuff butting heads.
Well, and the idea of these cultures walking, right? I'm talking about physically walking and making their way around. It seems too slow to me. Like there must have been a point of origin that was a little bit more direct. And I'm not trying to imply anything of extreme high technology, but there seems to be somebody teaching everybody the same thing. And I don't know if walking would have spread the word.
As I said, transportation it can't be an issue if if there was a group that understood this science.
Right.
They couldn't have had a problem with transportation. So whoever was doing the teaching looks to me like they were at very least regionally capable, if not globally capable. Now, the Buddhists flatly say they got their most sacred symbols from a non-human source. The Dogons say they got it from a non-human source that was originally non-material. That's a little difficult to explain. In the mindset of this archaic philosophy, universes form in pairs, one that is material and the other one that is not material. And in the Dogon conception, what happened, even down to the names they give these teachers, imply that something that was originally non-material, that had a very knowledgeable perspective, was able to interact with us in a material frame.
And so help me understand what, and the audience, of course, when you say non-material, what are you trying to reference?
In the mindset of this ancient tradition, it really is a question of mass and time frame. Einstein says that as a thing becomes more massive, its time frame slows down. And that implies that as a thing becomes less massive, time frame speeds up. Now, if we look at things from that perspective, then when we talk about the concept of matter in a wave-like state suddenly behaving like a particle, in the wave-like state, it has virtually no mass, and that implies that it also has an ultra-fast time frame, that events are happening very quickly. Now, if you've ever seen like a film or a video of traffic on a highway speeded up, it reaches a point when you're speeding it up where instead of looking like individual cars, it looks like waves. So there are a number of different perspectives from which it looks as if waves exist in an ultra-quick time frame, and that time works differently in that domain than it does in the material domain. There are even direct scientific ways to show that a non-material domain or a domain we don't readily perceive exists. There's a kind of fundamental particle whose symmetry requires it to be turned around twice in order to look the same. And that's very counterintuitive. That shouldn't happen. How can we have to turn something around twice before it looks the same? The suggestion is, or at least it allows the possibility that that kind of a particle passes into a domain we don't see and back out of it again.
And what's interesting here, when you look at it like that, was it an entire culture that was able to receive and see this? Or was it one guy, a leader? Or was it an entire culture that was able to do this?
From the perspective of the Yuga cycle, which is the Buddhist concept, humanity goes through cycles. And at the one extreme of the cycle, we're perfectly capable of perceiving non-material things. And at the other end of the cycle, which is the one we're at right now, or just past right now, we're not very able, practically not able at all to perceive things that are non-material.
Fascinating. And how, I know you've thought about this. I don't know if you can answer this. How did we lose this talent? How did we lose this part of us?
In the mindset of that Yuga cycle system, it's a natural cycle that happens. It's as natural as the seasons of the year. It would be asking like, how did we lose the snow that was there? Well, the way we lost the snow was the weather got warmer in a natural cycle, and we're coming back around again, and we're going to see snow again.
Are you suggesting, and I'm hoping that you are, that we will get all of this back and we're going to walk around with glowing brains?
Yeah, actually, there are a lot of people who right now are sensing or perceiving that there's a change in the degree of spirituality of people. Now, not from the Dogen perspective, we're not talking religion in the modern sense. The Dogen had the presence of mind to ask their teachers whether their teachers were God. Now, from sci-fi stories that if someone asks you if you're God and you're a visiting alien, of course you say, yes, I am God. That's the only answer. But their teachers said, no, we're not God, but if it helps you to think of us as agents of God, that's okay.
Do you have a timeline for this? Rita just texted me. She goes, okay, well, when is the stupid cycle over?
It begins, the beginning of it from our perspective is just after the end of the Ice Age. And we're basically 12,000 years past that now. It's a 24,000-year cycle. And we're just past the other end of that. We've just moved beyond the least spiritually connected that we are in the cycle. Yeah. And we're back on the ascent again. It's ascending and descending cycles. And there are disputes as to what the time frame is for the Yuga cycle and so forth, but based on what I can cross-check between cultures, it's a 24,000-year cycle. We're just past the halfway point. We're on our way back up. We're starting to become more spiritually aware than we were before. And all that means is it doesn't mean it's not defined in relation to a deity. It's defined in relation to a twin universe that right now we aren't very able to perceive. I'll give you another example.
Please.
I often talk about a scientist as being like the guy who gets in his car. He just learned how to drive. He gets in his car and doesn't realize that the mirrors in the car don't show him everything around him. He doesn't realize there's a blind spot. And so he might drive for his entire life and never realize that there's a blind spot there. And if he's lucky, he won't hit anything. But you and I know that there's a hidden spot there that's big enough to hide a Mack truck.
Right.
Well, that's the way these universes are described as working, that essentially that non-material frame is a blind spot for us.
With we're going to hit a break here. One of the things that I want to talk about when we come back is the Great Pyramid was built to like a 500th of a degree off of true north. But yet it seems like every other megalithic structure that we've been talking about is just off by that 10 degrees. Does that indicate that the Great Pyramid was built at another time that is just ridiculous in age? And I want to talk about that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Laird Scranton. There is nobody smarter when it comes to ancient Egypt, the Dogon, and ancient culture and history than Laird Scranton. His new book, The Mystery of Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Laird Scranton. And Laird, one of the, it's just so blindingly obvious to me when we have the Great Pyramid built at, True North, today's True North, the now, today True North. And it just seems like everything else around the world is off by this, you say 6 degrees. I've never measured it. I just see it with my own eyes. What does that tell you about the cycle of time where the Great Pyramid was constructed? Is it way, way back in the Walter Cruttenden, cycle of time to another great year that's 26,000 years ago?
Well, there are certain clues as to when the pyramids were built. And I tend to look at things symbolically. I was saying that there are reversals in symbolism that happen. As an example, the Buddhist stupa is a form that has a square base that rises to a rounded top. Square is the concept that associates with the earth or the material universe.
Okay.
Round is a shape that relates to the non-material. Now, through this Yuga cycle, there's a slow shift between which of the two realms is more material and which one is less material. And as that shift happens, the symbolisms have to change. Symbolism has to change because what had been represented with a square now has to be represented with a circle. If suddenly our material universe, we're now the one who is at the extreme where we can't perceive the non-material realm, we're the one represented by the square. If you look at the Dogon granary, which is a form of a stupa, it has a round base and a square top. Now, I can tell from the form of the structures that the round base associates with archaic times, and the square base associates with more recent times. The pyramids have square bases.
Yes,
the
okay.
Pyramid, from that perspective, simply because they have square bases, symbolically, if the culture was keeping to the symbolism, they had to have been built sometime after, halfway through this 12,000-year piece of the cycle.
So I'm trying to visualize the date that you're trying to get to. What are you thinking?
Well, and because it is a cycle, any date we point to, we might actually be talking about a full cycle back from that, or two full cycles back.
Right.
John Anthony West prefers solutions that are several cycles back. But if we were talking about a single cycle, it looks like reversals were happening by the time of Göbekli Tepe. I would have expected them to happen sometime after 6,000 BC.
Or 18,000, right?
Or 18,000. Well, actually, no, you have to go. Or 18,000. There could be reversals the other direction, or you go another 12,000 to get back to the point we're at. It's a 24,000 year all the way around.
Right. I don't have a problem with that.
Point, sort of across the other side of the cycle, you get from spring to fall in 12,000 years. You get all the way back around in 24,000.
Now, okay, so if we start to look at things like that, which I do, by the way, you just make me feel like I know what I'm thinking. I know what I'm talking about. But if we look at things in those terms, and we, which you also refer to as, teaching, right? Learning, it all comes from somewhere. It's somebody's teaching somebody something. We've got a couple of gaps here I want to address. We have the gap between Göbekli Tepe and the Great Pyramids, and the gap between Göbekli Tepe and Skara Brae, for example. There's a gap there of 5,000 years or more, right?
Right.
And then if we just accept that, okay, and put that to the side, which we can't, but let's put that to the side. Somebody taught the builders of Göbekli Tepe. Okay, now where did that come from? If we're at 10,000, we're at the edge of the Ice Age, and we're at 10,000 BC. Somebody's teaching the people of Göbekli Tepe.
Right. Well, we're now 12,000 years past Göbekli Tepe, and we know, or it looks as if we're on the ascending, the first stage of the ascending cycle here. We've gone maybe a fifth of the way back up the ascending scale. So that means Göbekli Tepe was at least a fifth of the way down the descending scale. So it's hard to say at what point in that process it might become possible to move from a non-material frame to a material frame.
Right.
But if people like myself are starting to be aware of the fact that this non-material frame exists, it's not unthinkable that the similar thing was happening back then, that someone on the non-material side was quite aware and able to interface with us at about the same point.
Are you theorizing here something off planet?
No. Originally, I thought that because of the emphasis on Sirius, the stars that are not only about 8 to 12 light years away from where we are, that implied that we had something, an influence that was off planet. That was the only explanation I could think of that would say, why would Sirius be such an important reference in all these cultures?
That's right.
I now understand that there are other reasons why Sirius is important, that there may have been off-planet influences back then, but the major one that the Dogon are talking about, that the Buddhists are talking about, looks like it began as a non-material reference. This is an inter-universe thing, not an off-planet thing.
Is it because down at the atomic scale, and we're talking about the influence that happens, instantaneously across the universe, that's where the knowledge would have spread and come from?
The idea is that the non-material universe has perfect knowledge,
right?
But an inability to act, and that inability to act comes from the quickness of the time frame, that there's not a moment to act in. Whereas the material side, the material universe, has imperfect knowledge and perfect ability to act. And so what it looks like is going on here is a kind of a cosmic game of charades, where the non-material side is understood to be able to give certain hints and clues and influence in certain ways. In the way the archaic philosophies describe it, knowledge can be communicated through vivid dreams, through what look like coincidences.
Right.
The odd behavior of animals, through divination, through clairvoyance, through things like that. But most typically, for somebody who's not really attuned to it, all that's coming across is a hint, and it's like the hope exists that somebody will pick up on that hint and act on it.
And could this be, because now we're almost dealing with a knowledge that could be billions of years old, right? It's a universal. It's across the. It is so old. Could that have influenced cultures here on Earth 10 million years ago? That this knowledge has always been.
It's a cycle. It's like asking, could we have had spring 10 million years ago? Sure, we could have.
Right.
Another comparison I make is to the way things work in those two mindsets. In our realm, we have a cassette tape. We can play an album from the first song to the last song, and that's all we can do. We can listen to it from the beginning to the end, and no choice. That's the way time works. It's linear. On the non-material side, they have a CD. They can go right to the track they want to go to, pick a track and go to it. So they have full command of wherever they want to be in the CD music. We have to pace our way through it as time allows us to.
And when we always look at when we have questions and we're looking for answers, and the simplest answer is usually the correct one, right? And here we are looking at this, as complex as it may be, when we raise the questions of how possibly could not only ancient Egypt, but other cultures around the world so many thousands of years ago had, and the Dogons, have evidence of a knowledge of binary star systems. That's a crazy thought. It's impossible. You can't see these things. But maybe, right, just maybe, that information was universal. They didn't have telescopes, right?
Right. They didn't have telescopes. There's no evidence that these cultures in this 12,000-year cycle had telescopes. The Ice Age creates a problem for us because it sort of obliterates the trail of evidence we have to go back. So we can't say anything definite about prior cultures. Where the Egyptians talk about a first time, and the Buddhists talk about the first time knowledge was passed from a Buddha to humanity, the Dogon talk about a time when humanity was restored to culture. And so the Dogon perspective gives us some insight into the idea that there might have been previous cycles where we knew more than we know now.
I just got it for about the fifth time here. This question has popped up, so I want to address it a little bit more directly. What about arithmetic? Who was teaching arithmetic and this complex math 5,000 years ago? When again, we're talking about Stone Age man. Where did arithmetic arrive, and from who?
A lot of the systems of creation that are preserved in various cultures are based on are compared to metaphorically to an act of counting. In China, there's a tradition there that each of the stages of creation are considered to be like an ordinal counting from 1 to 10 or whatever. It's the same thing in Buddhism and the Dogon culture. There are aspects of it. Even in Christianity, God is one, and there's a counting element to this. So math is one of those skills that's sort of woven right into this civilizing plan. The very first action that an initiate in this tradition is taught in Buddhism is how to lay out the geometry for the alignment of these shrines. That's mathematics, and it's fairly high mathematics.
And
so math is integral to that system. The question of who knew it is the same question as who put together this system, this instructed system in the first place.
I don't know if I've asked you this before, but I've seen your presentations and some other stuff where you address some of these really, really complex, not only metals and interactions on an atomic scale, and physics. But the Dogon and the Egyptians and other cultures made direct references to things that they should not have known anything about when it comes to technology.
In Buddhism, there's a category of symbols called adequate symbols.
Right.
And these are symbols that are defined as not being able to lose their meaning, even if the long trail of initiates somehow loses track of it. The symbol still retains its meaning. Now, the only way that can happen is if the shape of the symbol relates to something in nature that a person can look at. And then if that's true, then eventually, when a culture has the right technology, they look at the shape of an electron orbit and they realize that shape represents that concept.
Right, exactly.
Egyptian glyphs, and you see the shape, and you know what it represents.
And we know it today, right? We look at them and go, okay, that's an atom, that's an electron. But how on God's green earth?
200 years ago, when Champollion and Thomas Young were trying to decipher the Egyptian hieroglyphs, they both had absolute senses that there was more going on here than just phonetics. And Champollion delayed for months releasing his translation of the Rosetta Stone because he thought there was more going on. And Thomas Young also was very frustrated at not being able to get down to it. But they didn't have the technology to make the connection. I'm fortunate to live at a time when I can see what these shapes look like, and I know what the scientists say they represent, and you can match it back and forth.
Yeah, one of the first times when I saw you lay out a bunch of these symbols in a row, and you're going, now what do you think this? Well, it looks like an atom to me, right? But how? First off, how would they have this knowledge? We've kind of addressed it tonight, but how would they have this? And what would they do with it? What were they doing with that kind of knowledge 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 years ago?
And there actually is a rationale for this. Looking at it from this perspective, that if you imagine that there was a group of teachers there who had some very important information they wanted to convey, and they knew that, and the message was really intended for a technological culture, not for a non-technological one. If you wanted to convince a technological culture thousands of years from now that you knew what you were talking about, the first thing you do is you lay out a long series, a progression of symbols and meanings that relate to something that culture will be able to verify, how atoms form, how matter forms. Once you've done that, that establishes a basis of credibility so that you can now say, now here's the rest of it, the stuff that you're not able yet to see, here's how it works, and your reason for believing what I'm telling you is, I just correctly described how an atom forms. You can see I know what I'm talking about.
That's nuts. You know that, right?
I know it is, but that's the way it works. I have a follow-on book to the Skara Brae book that's about the Maori in New Zealand that was just submitted and accepted today.
Okay.
Beyond that, the next book deals with fundamental concepts of science. It gets down to really the nitty-gritty stuff even astronomers, astrophysicists are not really talking about, and uses the comparison of these traditions to explain what I think is going on at the bottom of the system. And there are really, really good reasons for why it's laid out the way that it is.
And so if we accept that concept, right, we are the possessor of the knowledge. So therefore, everything, you know this, so therefore everything that we now present, you need to accept as fact, right? Okay, so let's just say
at least allow that it could be true. If it checks out as being reasonable, then because all the rest of it checks out as fact, our presumption should be that this is also probably fact.
Well, it works in the court system today, right? You get a witness on the stand, he tells the truth on one thing, and you prove that, well, then everything else that comes out of his mouth we have to accept as fact, right?
Or at least he has credibility for saying it. It might not make sense.
Exactly. So, but let's go there. But if that is the case, what were they doing with the knowledge of how an atom is working at a subatomic level? What is a culture doing with that knowledge? Did they have some kind of high technology, anti-gravity? I don't know.
It wasn't about doing something with the knowledge. From my perspective, what it's about is about a dependent relationship. That if we're talking about two universes that are twins, that are locked in a cycle like the Yuga cycle together, and that at bottom there is a dependency between these two universes, like there might be a dependency on, you saw there was a movie back in the 50s about two convicts who were handcuffed together. Okay, there's that kind of dependency between these two universes. Now the problem is that at the point in the cycle where we have, the one universe has the knowledge to actually understand what's going on, they can no longer even perceive that the other universe is even there.
Right.
Okay? So someone comes along and they set up a system whose goal is to preserve an understanding of that second universe is there based on that science, because that's precisely the point that non-material universe needs someone to know that it's there.
Right now, is there, and I think that there is, right now, is there another version of you and us doing this show in reverse?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I do think that, as I said, with the comparison between the cassette tape and the CD, that there is a universe where everything that happens over time for us on our cassette tape, they can get to the individual pieces of it in random order, the same way that a scroll has to be rolled, but a book, you can go directly to the page you want.
My frontal lobes have just blown out into the studio here. I wanted to ask you one thing, because you've alluded to this over the years. Have you ever seen anything strange in the sky that you can't explain?
Absolutely. In my area of study, the first thing a person learns is that there are things going on that we can't explain. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't real or that they aren't scientific or that we won't eventually be able to explain them. But the first hurdle to being able to deal with any of this material is accepting the fact that there are things going on we don't understand. And so I have a huge pile. When I research a book, I come away with a huge list of things that I can't connect to anything real, and a small list of things that I can that I write about. And then somewhere down the line, like with the Skara Brae book, one piece falls into place, and suddenly a whole book's worth of those loose ends tie together in a way that I can explain it.
Can you then, and I'm talking about Laird, does Laird then make a direct connection to this and that thought process, and especially with the non-material, with the Akashic record?
I don't see it in terms of an Akashic record, but if the non-material side works the way that I think that it does, and basically can access time the same way we access a CD, that serves as a record. But I don't see it in the same context, in the same frame that Akashic record people look at it.
Do you, I'm going to leave you with this, Laird, the way that you look at the world, and I'm glad that you said outside the box, because that's what the world needs more of, is you and thinkers like you. But what is it that you see with the world, man? When you look out, you're not seeing the world through the eyes that I have. What is it that you see? Are you walking around in just like a cosmic thing? Do you see how everything is connected? I find it fascinating.
No, not really. But in Kabbalism, they talk about there's discussion of classes of mystics, different ways that people can receive information. I was talking about through dreams and things like that.
Right.
There's a class of mystic called a pure mystic that, without going into a fainting spell or having a seizure, or without sleeping like Edgar Cayce did, or without use of hallucinogenic drugs or whatever, that material that is specifically cosmologically related sort of presents itself to them as they need it. There's a certain perspective from which the esoteric tradition itself, the idea that an initiate asks a question of a teacher and the teacher is obligated to give him a correct answer, that relationship is symbolic of the relationship between these universes and the way that information flows between the universes. That as long as a person continues to ask the next pertinent question, that there's an opportunity to learn about it.
Bingo. Do you think, and again, I want to thank you and everybody, the book is The Mystery of the Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. It is available now. You can get it through Amazon and, of course, Laird's website. Laird, do you think that we will hopefully soon ever really, do you think that academia and Egyptologists will change what they teach? Do you think we'll actually find out what really is going on there? Because truly we don't, and certainly they don't.
They'll have to. The community of researchers that I am a part of are turning up pieces of this that are really just not refutable. And so realities are going to be bumped up against, and it's going to reach a point where the academic perspective is going to have to flip on certain things. It happens occasionally, as it is right now, where they like with Göbekli Tepe, they were dead set that there was no high culture prior to Egypt, and yet here the Göbekli Tepe turns up 7,000 years earlier.
Rita said, last question, is Laird's world flat or round?
That's really hard. If you judge by my head, it's round.
Laird, don't ever change, man. Don't ever change. And now I know the next book has been accepted. When you're ready, let's get you back on. Are you speaking anywhere soon?
Yes, I'm scheduled to speak at the Megalithic Odyssey Conference in London in May. Arrangements haven't been made for that yet, but it looks like that's going to happen. I'm scheduled to speak in Virginia Beach in October of 2017 at the ARE Mysteries Conference, the Edgar Cayce people.
There you go. And are you coming out west?
With an invitation, I would be happy to.
Man, we got to get you.
I occasionally am out for CPAC conferences and things like that, but right now I'm not scheduled to come out.
Okay, well, we'll see what we can do on that. In the meantime, give my best to Risa, and be safe out there. Thank you so much, Laird. You are the absolute best.
Thank you very much. Great interview.
Yeah, you're the best, Laird. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Laird Scranton. I'm serious. This is the thing when it comes to Laird. He comes on the show, and I learn. And I feel smarter. I feel like I've got a grip. I'm one step closer to the truth. Thank you so much, Laird. The book is The Mystery of the Skara Brae, Neolithic Scotland, and the Origins of Ancient Egypt. Amazon.com. Get it now. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I've got some more stuff right after the break. Stay with us.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out! That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-618-WAVE, 888-618-WAVE, or visit mydryhome.com. mydryhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Man, oh man. Laird Scranton. That's right. That's exactly why I do this show. Right there. This is Fade to Black. Laird Scranton. I got to tell you, and I say this all the time, when it comes to science today and education and thinkers and how we get stuff done today, I don't know how we do. We just don't. Science in the past, and you go back to, you can start with Galileo and Copernicus and Newton and keep working backwards from there, right? And you just go backwards from that to the dawn of time. All of the progress that we have made today, everything was because all of those dudes thought outside of the box. They were looking down the hallway to prison cells, getting their heads burned at the stake. That's what they did. They defied all of that. Not only the church and religion, just in general, man. If you went outside of the box, the earth is round. What? Prison time for you, brah. That's what they did. And they thought outside of the box. Everybody. Galileo, if you think about what he did, right? And for some reason, we've lost sight of that completely today. Completely. And you listen to Laird and listen to what he has to say and how he puts it together. It is truly outside of the box, but man, what a way to look at history. But nobody will do it. Nobody will. Nobody wants it. Nobody. Some of this stuff has been taught in colleges, and thank goodness for that. But man, Laird Scranton, world needs more of you, my man. All right, I'm opening up the phone lines right now. 323. They got their heads burned at the stake. Brian, that's what I just said. 323-825-5045. Opening up the phone lines right now. 323-825-5045. What'd you think of that conversation? What'd you think about my opening rant tonight about Zika? It's one of those situations where, thank goodness, I said what I said and I meant what I meant, and it is in the public record, and this show is archived because I told you this is exactly where we were going to be. And here we are in the middle of November. So all of this, let's see, August, September, October, November, took 3 months. 3 months. I said 2. Okay, so it's 3. But you just watch. By the end of the year, we've got another 40 days left. Today's 40 days left. You watch. We're going to have another worldwide epidemic created by the CDC that is going to be the end of mankind. Just watch. And by February, it'll be gone, and we'll have moved on to something else. This is what's crazy. There's no Zika vaccine. That's not what ended it. There was no catch-all, cure-all. That's not what ended it. It's caused by sex now, right? Well, what? The world stopped having sex? No. Right? And now Zika just happened. What? It just burned itself out in a month? Oh, really? Interesting. All right. A couple of things over on our Facebook page were posted today, and I think this is some of the best news. This right here, this next news story that I'm going to hit you with, should have been the number one story today, even over the Japanese earthquake. This should have been not Zika. No. This is one of the best news stories of the entire year. And this is evolution at its finest right now in the works. Eagles. That's right. Eagles. Eagles. The bird. The bird. Eagles. Those aerial takedown artists are at it again. This time, they've taken out nearly all of the unmanned aerial vehicles, the drones, dispatched to fly over mining lands in Western Australia. Check out the pictures. Go to our Facebook page. Wedge-tailed eagles are batting nearly 1,000. Make that American baseball reference. They're batting nearly 1,000 in the sky near the country's mining town of Kambalda. All told, out of 10 drones to take to the air, 9 have been sent to the ground by the eagles. I watched a video today of a drone getting taken down by an eagle, and I got to tell you, it is one of the coolest things you have ever seen in your life. The eagle will have nothing to do with a drone. It is now a natural enemy. Thus far, South Africa's Gold Fields, which has mining concerns in the area, has spent some $100,000 on replacement drones. Why? Well, the company uses these drones as surveyors. The flying eyes take high-resolution photographs and use them to create contour maps for future mining expeditions. Drones in the area have been attacked by 2 eagles at once, and efforts to disguise the machines as other eagles have not fared well at all. Why? Because eagles are smarter than that. I love it. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. You're live. Okay. 3, 2, 1, done. You know, if you take the time to call into the show and you're on hold and you go through the rotation and you come up and you're in play, A, turn me down in the background, and B, get ready. All right? Man, how simple can it be? Okay, somebody right now is posting, this is Mark Tarana, just posted this video of this eagle attacking this drone. It is, you can see the eagle, man, coming in, bam! That is a great video. I got to retweet this. That is one of the best videos ever. That's the reason to have the internet right there. All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's try this again. Okay, that's it. That's the last time. That's it. That call's blocked. Don't waste my time. Okay, here's another one. Thank you. Look at this. That is just incredible. I love it. All right. Swiss archaeologists have unearthed a mysterious pot filled with bronze coins and oil lamps, each decorated with images including gladiators and erotic scenes. Erotic. Now, they were found during construction work in Windstitch in the northern Swiss canton of Aargau. The cooking pot is believed to have been buried almost 2,000 years ago when Aargau was home to a Roman legion camp, and it was called Vindenisa. Now, go to our Facebook page. You guys are already there now, too, no doubt. Go to our Facebook page and look at this picture of the pot. It's incredible. Now, I've seen other pictures of the pot as it was being excavated, right, in this dig. It looks exactly like it does right now in the pictures that we've got posted. According to archaeologists, the pot is a typical cooking vessel known to have been used by soldiers that were stationed there. What makes this finding unique, however, is the pot's contents. Inside there were a total of 22 oil lamps, each decorated with an image of the moon goddess Luna, a gladiator, a lion, a peacock, and, an erotic scene. It's very cool. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Jimmy, this can't fine. What your last guest was talking about was making a lot of sense, especially when he said that you could grab the information not sequentially, but in pieces at random. I guess it's like, any great artist, how they say that the composition comes to them and then they just have to reconstruct it.
I agree. Yes, I agree. Yeah. I agree. And one of the things, you called me, Ken. Was that your only point, or did you have another one?
No, sir. I thought that was a fabulous point.
It is.
I've never heard it put that way.
It needs to be put that way. And that's one of the things that I need to stress so much is when you talk to a guy like Laird, who obviously is smart, right? He's just a smart guy. And you listen to, and you're just like, okay, I get it. All right, now I'm going to go check this out on my own because this sounds like something I need to look into. I need to learn more about. But the education system out there won't have anything to do with it.
Won't touch it. And that's the stuff that you go through this, and it's a complete mystery. Well, gee, how did that happen? And it's just delightful that somebody actually put it in words in a book. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome, Ken. Have you ever gone and looked at pictures of Skara Brae? Actually, no, I have not.
Okay, it's very simple. It's Skara Brae, Skara Brae. Go look. Just go. Just go Google that and click on the images and bounce around. But go look at 20, 30, 40 images in a row. Just go click on them and take a look. And just the first thing that's going to pop into your head is, this is 5,000 years old? These rooms, when I say, and I'm not kidding about this, Ken, go look. When I talk about beds, cabinets, cupboards, shelves, bookcases, ovens, that's what's there, man. It's like a modern day IKEA, right? And you're just like, wait a minute. This is 5,000 years old. Somewhere, and that's what Laird brings. Somewhere this knowledge is coming in. It's coming in. Yeah. Where does the square angles and when you look at these, 5,000 years ago, Stone Age man is building a shelf on the wall so he could put up pictures of his family. Wait a minute. He saw this somewhere. Right? Yep. You understand what I'm saying? He saw it and recreated it. It's fascinating.
Fascinating.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I will Google that and look it up. Thanks, Jimmy G.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Behave.
Good idea.
That's what I'm talking about. I think. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Mr. Jimmy Church?
Was that a show tonight, or was that a show?
I always thoroughly enjoy listening to Laird. Very, very, very intelligent gentleman.
Yes, he is. So what'd you take away from the show? You called me. I know you're thinking something.
Well, what I take away from it, Jimmy, is that we still can't prove. We're talking about the age and the time frame that we're looking at here. But are we 100% accurate on the time frame? That, to me, that's what is so mesmerizing to me is that we can be off by 5,000 years or more, and that the technology that these people had, the mental capacity that they had to accomplish what they were accomplishing, and thinking to me is, I have a hard time grasping for them to have the mental capacity that they had at that time frame. What are we missing?
We're missing.
What is still out there that we're missing? We're still we're missing something, Jimmy.
That's exactly right, Steve. Look, if you are, you want to. How do I want to say this? You have a car, right? And it's parked in your driveway, and you're going down. You're in the next city over or whatever, and you see some guy pull in with the same car, but now the car is got big back tires. It's got a cool paint job. It's got a custom hood scoop on it. It's got a stereo system on the inside. And you go and you peek in and you look at the stereo system and you look at the paint job and you get ideas, right? And then you go back to your car because you have seen another car. You now know the possibilities that lie in yours, right? You know that because you have seen it. You get the right. Well, it's the same thing with Stone Age Man. These ideas don't just originate out of the blue, right? You are not, Steve. If you have never seen a hood scoop on a car, you're not going to come home one day and go, man, I'm going to put a hood scoop on this. No, it doesn't happen that way. And
you're exactly right.
Yes. And so when you see things like Skara
every
Brae,
idea is generated from another idea.
You saw something.
From a vision of something, some frame of reference.
And that's it. That's it. That's it. There is no other way to look at things, man. There just is not.
So what are we missing, Jimmy? There's still something out there that we're missing. Where is that frame of reference?
Yeah, I can tell you.
That we're looking for. Where is that thinking frame of reference at, Jimmy?
Steve, it
kills me.
I know, and you know what? And this is it. I'm going to make it really simple. It's buried, man. It's in the dirt. It's buried, and if meteorite, right, a asteroid hits Earth tomorrow, right? Boom, we're all done, right? Done. It is so catastrophic that we don't have any sun for the next 500 years, right? We're buried. Now, 10,000 years from now, 10,000, anything that you're looking at on this planet right now, there's no evidence of anything. Maybe the Great Pyramids will still survive, but everything else, Los Angeles, Manhattan, Moscow, London, that stuff is covered in dirt and trees. And if you go 200,000 years from now, I can guarantee you there is zero evidence of us here because we are now underneath water and dirt. Right? Do you understand? And so the next civilization that it would be here, whether it's from another planet or we regrow ourselves, and then we've got to go back and find evidence of us being here. Right? We've got to go and dig that up. It's the same thing. I don't know how the people of Göbekli Tepe learned how to carve and quarry rocks. I don't know. I don't know how this happened. I just don't. But that knowledge came from somewhere, and it is really, and we have got to go and dig it up and find out. Steve, do you have any idea the amount of knowledge that is under the sand in Egypt?
That's right, in Egypt. We haven't scratched the first stinking grain of sand in Egypt when it comes to the area that needs to be uncovered in the desert.
We would have never found
so fast. It's like thinking about the universe on Earth that you've got to try to uncover to try to find this, some of the frame of reference. And that's why when when I listen to some of Corey Good's stuff, and he speaks about some of the inner Earth civilizations that are supposedly living underground, it has to, to me there has to be some validity to that, because when you look at time on the scale that we're talking about, you have no choice. To me, it's only logical to go underground. If you truly want to survive as a civilization, it's not on the surface.
No, that's exactly right. And look, we would have never, Steve, we would have never found the Sphinx if that head wasn't sticking out of the sand. If that sand was another 20 feet deeper, right? We would have never. So if that is there, just imagine for a second, and it doesn't take much of an imagination, but think what's lying out there underneath that sand forever. I mean, it's just forever out into the desert. We don't know. We don't.
And look at how much stuff is, like you said, if the Sphinx head isn't sticking up 20 feet, okay, Cairo is on top of it.
That's right.
And then it's never found.
No, an apartment building is on top.
That's right,
man. I know, right? Hey, Steve, thank you for the phone call, my brother, and I'll see you tomorrow night on the show. As
always, my brother, thanks for the time.
You are the best. That's Steve from Bluefield, everybody. Thank you so much, Steve. I needed to get to this next story before I depart tonight. Well, I've got a couple of things I got to get in here, but one of them is this. Kanye West, man. It's been a rough week for old Kanye and his fans. He's been out there doing these political rants instead of music, which is dumb. Usually that equals a bad mistake, and my math isn't incorrect here, because today Kanye canceled the rest of his 2016 tour, which had been scheduled through New Year's Eve. The remaining dates on the St. Pablo tour have been canceled, and tickets will be fully refunded at point of purchase. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen these videos, but dude has completely lost his mind. I'm talking about several days of bizarre behavior. I don't know if it's drugs, if it's the Kardashians, if his brain is being fried. I don't know. But it started last Thursday night when he was in San Jose, California, when he declared that he hadn't voted in the recent election, mistake number one, and then that if he would have voted, he would have voted for Trump, mistake number two. Keep your stuff, seriously. But anyway, then on Saturday, he ended his concert in Sacramento, California after performing just 2 songs, and then started going off about Hillary and Google and Facebook and Beyonce and Jay-Z. Lost his mind. And then he cancels his dates here in Los Angeles. And then today, the whole tour is canceled. Look, when I go to a concert, I'm there for music. That's what the audience does not care about who you would have or didn't vote for. They don't care. They don't care about your political view. They don't care what you think about Jay-Z. They're there because they're fans of your music. And losing sight of that because you think you are more important to the world than your music is, nobody cares. No, absolutely nobody cares. You've just alienated yourself from everybody. Nobody cares. Could you imagine going out and seeing AC/DC or Van Halen or Led Zeppelin or Metallica, and you got to sit through, or Axl, and you got to sit through a diatribe about politics? Dude, no, that's not what they're there for. They're there to escape that. It's not a political rally. Kanye, you brought it upon yourself. And that's my take on it. All right. Geologists now say that a new survey shows an oil field in West Texas that now dwarfs others found so far ever in the history of the United States. And this is according to the United States Geological Survey. The Midland basin of the Wolfcamp Shale area in the Permian Basin is now estimated to have 20 billion barrels of oil and 1.6 billion barrels of natural gas. That makes it 3 times larger than the assessment of the oil in the Mammoth Bakken Formation in North Dakota. The estimate would make the oil field, which encompasses the cities of Lubbock and Midland, 118 miles apart, the largest continuous oil discovery in the history of the United States. All I got to say is this: Lubbock and Midland had better learn to spell earthquake. Seriously. Now, in the biggest news probably in the last, history of everything, I'm going to ask you this. Can you drive a car by getting on the front seat and pushing on the windshield? Can you push the car forward? The answer, of course, is no. Now, Newton's third law of motion, for every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? We know this. Well, that explicitly prohibits this. However, after months of rumors, speculation, and criticism, a peer-reviewed study has been published in the Journal of Propulsion and Power, claims now that the new electromagnetic drive, or EM drive, works. Yes, despite everything that we know in physics. Now, the speculation that NASA was on the verge of developing the EM drive has been floating around now for over a year. I've been talking about it. And now this new study says it is possible. Now, I'm just going to leave you with this. Just remember, just because a study has passed peer review doesn't mean that its results are valid, only that the researchers' methodology was considered sound. This has been Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Very, very special thanks to the one and only Laird Scranton. The best. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Camarion. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale. Webmasters, Drew, The Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network.